Hello, my name is Afonso, and today I'll present to you how to create micro-frontends using Astro, Islands, and EcmaScript modules. And soon you'll find out that actually this title is kind of clickbait, but oh well, you gotta make it. So, require LX, but actually there must be an NPM injection here because I'm actually from Porto and drive all the way here. So, okay, so yeah, I'm Afonso J. Ramos. You can find me on GitHub, LinkedIn, .me domain, and whatever. And yeah, out of the office, probably you'll find me at music festival or I don't know, browsing YouTube for random things. Yeah. So what makes a micro? What does Mondrian have to do with anything? You mentioned eczemas. What? Can I go on vacation to an Astro island? These are the questions that you might be having. Maybe not. I don't know. But let's go over the history of micro-frontends first and settle these things once and for all. Okay. So who has heard of microservices? Okay, yeah, almost everyone, right? Okay, so it all starts with a monolith, right? Your product is getting bigger and bigger, code reviews are getting harder and harder, and scaling issues are starting to show up. And that's when you decide to start opting into microservices. Why? Well, because on microservices, this meant that your backend started to get split up, business logic got centralized to each microservice, and you have basically a database per microservice sometimes, sometimes not, but it all works towards a specific business goal. So this meant that updating, testing, deploying, it all happens within each service, and each team responsible for each service is personally, or not personally, but the team is responsible for this whole process. And this meant that the major business got decoupled into more domain-specific concerns and independent code bases, which is good, as we've all figured out now, right? So it doesn't mean that it reduces complexity. If anyone tells you that microservices is the solution, I think that this year actually we've had quite a few examples where maybe going too deep into microservices is actually a bad thing. We've had I think probably like 3 months ago, Amazon post saying that they were moving off of microservices, but in reality it was actually like a microservice that was working for a microservice. So it depends, right? Okay, so what does this have to do with anything? Back to micro-frontends, right? I don't think I cannot talk about micro-frontends without talking about Luca Mazzalira. He kind of coined the term, if I'm not mistaken. We, YLD, actually have worked with Luca, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, and he actually works at Amazon right now, and they have their own microservices platform, which works very differently from the ones that I'm going to talk about today, but it can be considered better, but again, not all solutions fits all the problems, right? So, okay. What he always said about micro-frontends was that it was the technical representation of a business subdomain. So I guess that using your correlation powers, you can kind of understand where it relates to microservices, right? It all serves the same purpose, to represent these business subdomains into specific buckets, let's say. So who uses micro-frontends? Google, Airbnb, Atlassian, Netflix, Microsoft, a lot more. Okay, Volkswagen, yeah. A lot of people, a lot of companies, not people, because you'll soon find out. Yeah, a lot of companies use micro-frontends. And you can already tell that this is like large companies, maybe companies with thousands of employees, like Volkswagen, right? So why is that? Okay, let's take an example just to like zoom out a bit. Okay, let's see at Airbnb. Yeah, sorry about this. I took a Portuguese screenshot. Yeah, don't worry about it. We're just looking at the UI today. So we have pointer. Yeah, we have the Airbnb site, right? Okay, and this is just the listing page. Okay, so let's see. How can we divide this into micro-frontends? Any ideas? Yes? Header. So like the full header.
Yes.
Okay. Any other? Yeah?
Down from the header, the search bar would be one micro-frontend, as would be like the little dot on the top right with your face on it, for instance, and so on, so on, so on.
Yeah. So, yeah? You have a different?
The grid of images.
The images themselves?
The grid.
Oh, the grid. Yeah. So, yeah. So if you think about what I've said before, right? We want to divide into business domains or core products. So I'm not sure about this division. I don't work at Airbnb, but the most likely division that they did was, wrong button. Okay, the most likely one that they did was search. So you have a team dedicated to search, and I've worked with search before. You truly need a dedicated team for it. Account, and this is just like product listing. Maybe the filters could be a separate thing as well, but well, we're just guessing here, right? So who's it for, right? I've talked about Airbnb. We've talked about it works on big companies, but let's take a look back into what works for who. So from left to right, you have complexity / company size. Complexity, I mean, of product, and company size, yeah, self-explanatory. So maybe if you work at a startup, all you want to do is build fast, break fast, present things to the user. You want to pivot as fast as you can, and we all know that if you're working with microservices, you're already working at a somewhat big company or medium-sized company. But like, if you're working on a startup, it's better to just start with a monolith and just break things up when you start growing into maybe a microservices with a monolith front end. Why? Because microservices clearly start giving you a bit more power to scale, and because you're starting to feel the scalability constraints, but maybe you don't need to go into micro-frontends yet, right? Only when you start having these issues with a really huge code base, a lot of employees, a lot of business goals to attain, and like if you have a full company working towards just one front end, you're starting to divide things up already, right? But if you're still contributing all to the same repository, and you have like a, let's say that you have just one repository for everything. I'm forgetting the name for monorepo. Yeah, thank you. If you start having a monorepo, if anyone has worked with a monorepo before, you know that code reviews are hard. It starts getting complicated. Sometimes you need to have validation across multiple teams. Maybe you just have the LGTM and you're good to go. it starts getting a bit out of hand sometimes. Monorepos are not for everyone, but they do work, but they're not for everyone. So maybe that's when you start considering micro frontends, right? So essentially, what it allows you to create is end-to-end scalable teams, right? So you can have a full team dedicated to the whole account business domain. So that means that the team completely, so this obviously works mostly for full stack developers, or full stack engineers. Obviously, you can still have the division between backend and frontend, and have frontend devs and backend devs, but you still have a lot of connection between the frontend and backend because it's just the one connection. If you're connecting with like 4 teams at once, it starts getting really hard to maintain those relationships. And in the end, if you have a really, really big company, sometimes it's not the tech problems, it's the people problems. And it's not even it's human resources scalability, not even tech scalability. So micro frontends try to work with that and improve that a bit. So how is everyone doing these micro frontends? Right, I could talk about server-side composition, edge-side composition, client-side composition for micro frontends, but let's focus on client-side composition, which is what most people are doing, and the other solutions are more like products that you use, such as the AWS one that I mentioned that Luca Mezzalira is involved in right now. So if you think about it, the iframe was kind of like the precursor to the micro frontend, right? You had a little window that you reserved for something that ran somewhere else, and you just point at it, and yeah, that's kind of what a frontend is, right? But like the most popular one that is being used today is Webpack's model federation. Model federation, again, works with Webpack. A lot of web apps work with the Webpack. You can have Webpack work in almost all of the frameworks that I know of. But we all know that if you work with Webpack, it comes with a backpack. And that backpack is full of complexity, right? So what I'm going to present to you today is an alternative to Webpack's model federation that does not have a backpack, or at least if it has a backpack, it's kind of hidden from you, and you don't need to deal with it almost at all. So how I'll do it, right? So one way to reduce this complexity in our micro frontends is to simply compose these ESM, EcmaScript modules, and using import maps while taking advantage of these global CDNs for packages. And you basically also use Vite and Rollup, but Rollup is kind of built into Vite for production, so you actually don't need to worry about Rollup, but it's something that you it's good if you're aware of it, because it helps with the tree shaking and the common chunk splitting and lazy loading, things like that. Maybe I'll go into what an import map is a bit, because it actually is like a pretty new thing, and EcmaScript modules a bit as well. Import maps, as you can see here, basically allow you to define in a JSON where the keys are for the ESM module names. So here, React, this one is just a link to the React ESM module. Another benefit of ESM modules is that you can also version them. In this case, I didn't version them because I was just working with latest, and yeah. But obviously, that if you work in a company, you'll need to start versioning this, and yeah. And you can have like multiple versions as well. So that's also good for transpiling and bundling. And then EcmaScript modules are kind of what allowed us to do these static imports, and it also changed a bit how JavaScript was run. If you've ever worked with a package in specific, like a package that worked in React or something, and you previously built for CommonJS, and suddenly you have to build for CommonJS and EcmaScript modules, it's actually a nightmare to build to both. There are some things that, I mean, not now maybe, but like 3 years ago, probably there were a lot of packages that made you use require instead of import. So require LX had to be done instead of import LX, right? But now you can import almost everything, so that's fine. So let's go into demo time, okay? Hopefully nothing breaks. Let's see, this is kind of laggy, this screen. Okay, so maybe I will go into the code base first. Okay, so yeah, the brightness, zoom, yes, zoom. Enhance, okay, yes, enhanced. Okay, so we are looking now at viteconfig.js. So this is the config file for Vite in app A. App A. So I have two things actually: shell and packages. This is just because I have a PNPM workspace just to facilitate how I run things and install things. So we'll first look at packages. So this is app A. I've built app A using Tailwind and React. And if I go into, I think this is the app A one, yeah. Can I zoom this as well? No. No. Okay, I will tell you what I'm doing. So if I am developing, I just run pnpm dev, right? And I go to localhost 3000, which is opening here. And once it loads the first time, this is just like a pure React, I don't know. Oh, okay, there we go. So this is just React with Tailwind. It's just a card that I built with React and Tailwind. So let's go back in here. Yes. So in here, I have Vite config, right? As we were looking. And what I'm doing here is I have two plugins, React and CSS inject. This basically allows us to inject the CSS through JS, which means that we will be outputting our own application into a bundle.js file. What this means is that if I, instead of do pnpm dev, I run pnpm build and pnpm serve, yeah, so build and serve, I will not have this anymore, and I will start having in actually a different URL once it finishes. Okay, I can start running these as well on the rest of them. Okay, so then if I go to this, I cannot get slash because that's expected. Wait. So because if I write bundle.js, I will start this. Okay, it has a lot of things because it has Tailwind, this one, and for some reason it's not tree shaking, or maybe it is.
That's tree-shaped.
Yeah, that's tree-shaped for sure. Yeah, yeah. So, whoa. Okay. Okay. So yeah, we output to bundle.js in the format of ESM, right? This is actually changeable, but we want EcmaScripts. So we're doing the same in app B, which is also React. But the surprise is that in here, this is actually solid.js. It looks very similar to React. I'm not handling state in these ones either, but it is solid.js, right? So once we go to the shell app, right, we have, this is Astro, and so this is where Astro comes in, and this is, and it is Astro that allows us to work with multiple frameworks at a time. So I have the import map here that I talked to you about before. So React and React DOM are necessary in Astro as an import map. Not Solid, because Solid is a bit more lean and doesn't work with a virtual DOM, but that's another story. And this is the layout component. We also have the index, which, yeah, CSS is mixed up. And you'll start finding here React component A, React component B, solid component. Okay, these are Astro things, client directives to tell Astro if it's a client or server-side component. But let's not worry with that. So if I want a component B, let's say, all I need to do is actually super easy, right? You actually saw a bit of that over there. So I just import micro-front. It doesn't actually matter what I write here. What's important is actually HTTP. 7001. Oh no, 101000 bundle.js. And now I just const micro-frontend A equals no or, and now I can just React. What did I call it? No, yeah, micro-frontend A. And now I just export default, yeah, save. And now if we actually, actually let me write the wrong URL for a second there. So if now I go into my, nope, yes. So now this one is within the shell, actually not in the shell folder, but I have a pnpm start shell. This is basically run dev. And now if I go into, yes, this browser that is beautiful, and close this and go here. And so here you can already see that we have 3 cards. These 3 cards are all coming from different places. So this one is the React with Tailwind that I showed you before. This is the solid.js one, and this is a native Astro component. And so if I correctly put the URL here now, you can reload. Oh, right. This is actually micro-frontend B. My bad. So that's why it wasn't working. Whoop.
Don't you have 2 variables with the same name?
Yeah, you're redeclaring.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my bad. So let's just go for Micro-Frontend. Yay, so okay, now we have, this wasn't supposed to be, oh, because I'm, yep. So this is actually the front-end A. The other one is this one, yeah. There we go. Yay, React with Chakra UI. Okay. Okay, so basically, and this is an advantage of Astro. If you inspect these, each of them comes with their own CSS, with their own JS, and they are Astro islands, which at this point doesn't mean much to you, but it's basically what allows Astro to be so performative for content applications mostly, because basically everything is kind of sort of a independent thing, and it's only loaded once it is within view. Yeah, but this is for another time. So essentially, there are still a lot of costs that we find with using micro-frontends, namely state. How do you share state between a solid component, React component, or application, micro-frontend, right? It's hard. There are solutions. For example, Astro themselves already suggest one which is nano stores. It basically saves your state within local storage. It's a solution. Then you have the team building problem. You need to build these teams that have expertise in all of the fields. I'm not sure if you've tried finding full stacks, and you can find full stacks, but it's hard. And sometimes no one is like truly a full stack. Someone always sacrifices a certain area of expertise towards the other. So it's always hard to find someone and like doing this team building, like, yeah. And then you have a lot of overhead, right? So these are, it's the client that does this call separately to the micro-frontends, which is not bad. They are independently deployed. And so like, you still have some advantages towards that, because with Astro you only load once it's in view, and but yeah, basically you still have a lot of advantages there, but it does have some overhead in terms of configuration, things like that. And if you're working with model federation, you have even more things to worry about, because it's more on the component level as well, and it depends. But yeah, and then breaking up teams, because as I said, you don't work with micro-frontends from the start. You have to work with something and then start breaking up. And that also raises the point that you also have to break up the code. And yeah, migration's kind of hard to do. Yeah, but there's a lot of benefits as well, right? So team freedom, you're more independent. You have more control of the whole process, deployment, etc. Technology. However, this is like a double-edged sword, because yes, you can work with multiple frameworks, but there are disadvantages, such as sharing state. For example, if you were working with, which you can, with a fully React, for example, micro-frontend, it would be much easier to share states across these components. So there it is, a double-edged sword. So, but they still can like opt into a different UI framework, and yeah, and it's not all in the same code base. So it still helps. Product scaling, yeah. faster build time because you're working with a smaller code base, maintainability and fault isolation, smaller code base again, and fault isolation because if it's failing on one side, it's just on that side, and you can just, yeah, that's your fault, just your fault. And autonomous teams, autonomous teams. Deployment processes are their own. If one fails, you can also like implement fallback components for these situations. For example, I know some companies that use micro-frontends versions, so you have a deployed current version and a deployed previous version. So if the current version takes too much time to load, you just go back to the previous one. So, or if it errors out something, yeah. So, yeah, thank you for coming. This was my talk, and yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that talk. Any questions?
Sure.
Yeah, you first.
Go for it.
Okay, thanks. Great presentation as well. I never worked with micro-frontends, but I was wondering, do you have to host or serve the bundle files in live production? Is that just for building time?
Yeah, so you have to serve them. Well, in EcmaScript modules, yes, you have to serve the bundles. With module federation, it works a bit differently. Maybe Rita can talk more about it. I don't know. Maybe not.
We bailed from module
Oh,
federation.
you bailed from module
We bailed.
federation. Yeah,
We have our own
yeah.
solution.
Okay, yeah. A lot of companies
You
have.
have to serve as well.
Yeah, you have to serve as well. So yeah, because you're still working. But again, it's a micro front end, so the bundle should not be too big, and you're sharing some of the dependencies through the import map as well. So there's not that much loss there.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, cheers. Thanks for that. That was actually pretty cool. Astro was
Thank you.
awesome. Been using it for a while. But I wanted to ask you like a very simple question. Are you familiar with single SPA?
Single SPA, yeah.
Yeah, because it solves exactly the problem.
Kind of. And this is another potential solution to micro-frontends. Again, I've mentioned that I was talking about.
But yeah, I mentioned like because it's there's a lot of extra code on top, specifically for the state sharing.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So just.
Yeah. And if you read through the Astro documentation, they actually do mention a single SPA and point it as a potential solution. Yeah. Thank you. For the Rita. Yeah.
Perfect.
Two things. One more broad and another more to poke
Okay.
a little bit. If you're using Astro, you showed the HTML, so when we inspect, we can see that that web page was built using Astro.
Yes.
Or is that something that only happens for the development build? When you go to production and you go live with it,
Right.
if I right click, I can see how.
I mean, you can, with most frameworks, you can see what was used to build it, actually.
Okay.
With Astro, I guess it's more viewable, yeah, because let me see if I still have it open. Yeah, like you have, this is for the Astro Islands in specific, but like, these are the classes as well. So there's a lot of things that are Astro specific, but you can run away from that. But but a lot of frameworks already do this as well. So.
How do you communicate between Astro Islands, for instance, when you were giving the example of Airbnb?
Right.
Let's assume Airbnb was built using Astro.
Right.
When you click on a filter from one micro-frontend, how does it propagate to the other? Is there communication between the micro-frontends?
So that's what I meant when I mentioned state. Yeah.
Okay.
So you have it's.
But why is it state?
Why is it
Has to
state?
be state?
Does it have to be state? Yeah. So it doesn't have to be state, but
If it
like.
is state, then
right.
probably it means that the boundaries of your micro-frontends, they are not clearly defined. Maybe
Well-
you're leaking a little bit, maybe you don't have your business logic
Yeah,
that very
but like-
well defined. This is the pokey one. So
Right.
State. Why do we need to worry about state in a small application?
I mean, I think state is very important, right? And if you've working with an application that does not handle state very well is kind of hard to reproduce. So if you have everything in state, that's kind of a benefit, right?
It's a trade-off, isn't it? It's a benefit for some.
I mean, yeah,
Pokey.
it's yeah.
Totally pokey.
But again, this is more of an issue when you're handling multi-framework micro-frontends. If you're working with a single framework, it's easier to handle state still, or
But
props.
then again, if you're working
You can pass props, by the way. You can pass props to the components.
Okay, but if you're using the same framework in the different micro-frontends, are you not breaking one of the principles of the micro-frontends thing?
Well,
Which is to give independence to the teams to choose their own technology and to be autonomous in their...
you still need and that's why there is a shell app, right? You still need a
something
parent to
Exactly.
tell you what you can or cannot do. So, yeah,
Fair enough.
yeah.
Fair enough. Okay.
Even the URL is state.
Yeah.
True. True. And you can get most of the things, or maybe you can get some of the things that you need from the URL. For
Yeah.
instance, with the filters.
Exactly.
You
Like,
can have the filter parameters as
yeah,
reference.
exactly.
There you
Like,
go. You don't
but
say-
that's still state, right? It's state saved in somewhere else.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Fair
Yeah.
enough.
Like,
No.
you keep like a shared state?
No, wait. I just wanted to poke the discussion now. No, it's up to you.
No, I can kind of bring a real world situation. You can have like a shared state, and for sure it should be as small as possible, because you don't need a lot of data to be shared, but you need some. Probably you need some information about the user around the application. That is transactional.
Yeah, but
then you can also have states within each of the micro-frontends.
exactly, because there's a lot of state that is not global or doesn't need to be.
So yeah, it's that. You have to share stuff.
Okay, share some.
Yeah.
Like just to poke a little bit more. No, the thing is, if the different micro frontends don't talk to each other, what use is there to have multiple micro frontends? Then you don't need something as complex, right? The whole point of going for something like this is that they need to communicate somehow with another part of your global application. Users are obviously the classical example, but like the Airbnb example before was perfect. Search, and the results for search, they were behind. They were not the same application. And I'm pretty sure they weren't, but it's been a while.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah. So on the same line, like what about, I never worked, so maybe I may be thinking wrong, but what about like styling? Because probably you also have styling that is the same in each of the,
Right.
of the microphones.
So,
Is there a
yeah.
way to share it or to make it
Yeah.
coordinated?
So actually a fun thing about this, so as I said, one of the plugins that I'm using for Vite is CSS inject. So in CSS inject JS or something like that. So it injects the CSS through the bundle, right? So as you can see here, this one is actually a Tailwind one, right? And if you scroll down, you will, not in this one, so you will see that I have P1 here, right? But if I scroll down a bit more, I will find P1 again. And this is because there's two micro frontends that are using Tailwind, right? And this might be a disadvantage of Tailwind in this regard, because since the class names are what defines the style, and since the CSS is coming from multiple applications, well, you basically have twice the CSS for what you actually needed. And I mean, it's not that bad. It's not like awful, but it does Tailwind does output a big chunk. In this case, in this specific case, it's actually much bigger than the application code in the bundle. So you have to also be careful with if any of the teams override any Tailwind classes, right? But obviously, if you're working directly with CSS or with something that outputs CSS directly, yeah, you have to be careful still with the classes, right? With the class names. Imagine if you use the same class name across two components and the CSS is loaded. Then you have to be like, you have to trust that they were specific enough in the CSS selector, right? So yeah, it's hard to work with, but again, it needs guidelines from the parent and from whoever is orchestrating it. Nice question, though. Thanks.
Also following up on this exact same issue, does it also happen with the other JavaScript library bundles? For instance, imagine that each one of these was like React 16, 17, 18.
Yeah.
We'll have like 3 versions of React loaded, so I would have to specify those maps like that?
Well, yeah, so yes, but at the same time, you kind of want the company to still be on the same version of things. So maybe when you're upgrading, you have like teams, let's upgrade, and it's like an initiative to upgrade.
And then that happens, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah.
Okay, but this is an actual problem. So like this CSS thing is a problem. This is also, like the bundle is also a problem.
There's a lot of problems around micro-frontends, and I want everyone to be very aware of that. but the end goal or the end conclusion is that this is not at all for everyone. This is for companies that, like Airbnb, like if they have, like, they must have a lot of people just working on search. They have a lot of people working just on checkout. Maybe they have a micro-frontend just for a single button, just because they have the capacity for it, or they want to over-engineer because they can, right? And I mean, this is for those who can over-engineer because they can, right?
Also, I'm like, I don't know nothing about Astro, but is it based in any other framework? Is it like a React-based
Astro?
framework? Yeah.
No, it's, how do I put it? It bundles to, if you're working directly with Astro and you do not work with these, client-only directives that I showed for those components, it actually bundles all to HTML. So this Astro is, they sell themselves and they're content-focused. Because it actually works with, basically it renders to HTML. So it guarantees, if you're working correctly with it, all frameworks have escape hatches that allow you to be creating a bad application, but Astro kind of helps you a bit for content-specific pages, apps.
So Astro will try to remove the JavaScript as much as they can.
Yeah. But we're adding it back.
Yes. Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, Rita, yeah.
No.
Close enough. Someone in the audience on the previous talk, we were discussing about testing and checking the analytics. This is one of the good things that micro-frontends can give you. So imagine that you have your whole infrastructure deployed for Portugal, Spain, France, and you want to test specifically, okay, the search. We want to build a new search. Let's see how it goes. So you can deploy just the search for Portugal and have it running in Portugal, getting statistics, getting feedback, and keep the original search in the other regions.
Yeah.
So this is a very good case in which you can go and drive your implementation towards micro-frontends. And a fun fact, actually, the IKEA site in Portugal, we are running a micro-frontend approach on the client service.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I actually did not think about talking about the localization. Yeah, but it helps a lot with that. And you can actually have even better analytics and maybe tighter control of what you serve to customers with that.
Okay. Yeah, I think our time's up. Yeah. So again, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Volkswagen Digital Solution, for offering the space, and I'd like to thank the YOD staff, all the speakers as well for giving their time to make tonight happen. And lastly, I want to thank all of you for coming here. This is amazing turnout, and the discussions were great. QA was great, So yeah, so always believe in the principle of mastering the best of what other people have figured out. And with that, thank you for coming.